do this one first, and then we'll touch on Hero afterwards, because there's a little bit more of a news element to this one, Greg. And then we'll talk about Hero. We did a full episode on Kyle Lowry the other day. Of course, Greg, Alex, and Brady held down the fort on the Pat Riley press conference. There's a lot more to get into, but now we're going to use the Riley presser as a springboard to some other topics, and Hero will be one of those. But we do want to mention that Chris Quinn, just give the information out here. What came out today, Greg?
Yeah, so essentially this, the Heat are good at this stuff, at keeping it quiet. Woj came out today and said that the Utah Jazz have requested permission to interview Miami Heat assistant Chris Quinn. Everybody knows Quinny back from his playing days. He is definitely Spo's right-hand man. And they essentially want to interview him for the head coaching position there in Utah. But this was the little nugget that snuck in that makes me say that the Heat are good keeping this stuff quiet. Woj says Quinn also talked with Charlotte for that opening, which we didn't hear about. And he spent 8 seasons under Spoelstra's staff. From everything I've ever gathered as it relates to this coaching staff, Chris Quinn is the one guy that if there was an heir apparent or the next guy succession planning for, on the bench there, I felt like Chris Quinn was positioning himself for that role. So there's a part of me that thinks the organization will go to great lengths to keep him, but they also are very much about giving guys opportunities and really to push themselves out of their comfort zones and do great things elsewhere. So they're not going to impede his progress, but I think they'd love to keep Chris Quinn around. But it looks like he's going to interview with Utah.
Yeah, and he has, like I said, he has interviewed in previous years. We used to say with the Heat that it was like, or I said, it was like Hotel California. You could get in, but you could never leave. Jeff Bizdelic was one guy who left, and that created some difficulty. I remember Mark Ivoroni left. That was kind of anticipated. But then in recent years, it's been a little bit different under Eric Spoelstra than Pat Riley. It does feel like there's a little bit more of a grooming process. If you recall, when David Fizdale initially took the job in Memphis before he went to New York, Eric Spoelstra sat with him for like 2 days at the Ritz-Carlton in, I believe it was in Coconut Grove, to prepare him for that interview. They were actually in favor of him trying to get that job, which he did. Heat people did warn him about the Knicks job, which he did listen to, and he ended up taking that. But Fizz was considered to be a potential heir apparent if Spoelstra ever moved off the bench. Juwan Howard was considered to be a possible heir apparent. Dan Craig was considered to be a possible heir apparent. Of course, Dan left for basically a lateral position, which kind of leaves Quinny. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just mean like he's the next guy. But it all kind of comes down to this. And these are conversations because obviously they are close. They've worked together for a while now. Eric respects him clearly. It all comes down to whether Eric is ever going to give up coaching, because he's not, doesn't seem inclined to do so now. I had heard during the end of sort of the Hassan Whiteside tenure that was something that Eric was maybe considering. He also had, I think at that point, maybe the second child, or it was right after the first child, and that there might be a feeling that he would be ready to kind of move on to more of an upstairs position. But here's the other thing with that.
I was ready to move on to at that moment.
Well, I think everybody was, but here's the other thing about that though. And then
I was going to say, which one of those two do you think was more impactful?
Well, both, but I'll say this though. One of the issues with moving to an upstairs position is that there's not a lot of room upstairs either. Right? Like nobody's really left from there. I mean, Shane Battier is the only guy who kind of left and sort of around. Chet Kammerer supposedly retired 15 years ago, but he's still out there picking players for them. Adam Simon seems to get interviewed for every job in the league, but doesn't go. You've still got Nick Arison, obviously, representing the Arison family there in the front office. And of course you've got Andy Ellisberg and then Pat.
Yeah.
So it's like there's not a lot of like upward mobility, if you want to call that upward mobility. I think being the coach of the Miami Heat's a pretty damn good job. I'd like it. I wouldn't be as good at it as Eric. But so that's kind of where we're at, is that, I think a lot of this comes down to conversations that you have internally and say, all right, what's the role for Chris Quinn? Like, is he the heir apparent, and exactly when would that be? And this does feel like it's something that's going to cycle through for the next couple of years. I don't see anybody else on the staff currently that would look like a successor to Spo. But then again, Chris Quinn was not considered to be that when Juwan and Fizdale and others were on the staff either. So could it be an Eric Glass potentially, who's been groomed for this, during Or could it even be Malik Allen? I mean, you don't know. I mean, so you don't know who the next guy is going to be.
Well, and you mentioned his name. David Fisdale actually was let go today. So now he's around. So that's something to keep an eye on because, he's still connected very much to Spo in the organization. But Spoelstra doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. So to your point about the heir apparent, probably everyone should just pursue other jobs. And the guy who will take over for Spoelstra can be Brady Hawk when he's old enough to take that position.
Like next year? Maybe. Happy 19th, Brady, by the way. I missed that.
Yeah, exactly.
How old is Spo when he got the job?
It's a good. Spo was 37. Or maybe it just turned 38.
Brady has plenty of time. So Spo can coach till then, and then Brady will take over when he's around 35. Done.
That sounds right. Brady and Cooper Moorhead. Who's the lead assistant? I guess we'll have to figure that one out. And then maybe Nikias comes back too, and they bring in the whole group. That would be better than most. Well, that would be better than most coaching staffs around the league. So anyway, we'll monitor that situation.